Welcome to Authentic Journey. This is a show about raw conversations about life and living. I'm Neliana, a funny, smart, lovely, and sexy woman who loves to challenge ideas. And my name is Kim. I'm a woman, a mother, a sister, an aunt, a colleague, and I think a great friend. I'm a human being who enjoys connecting with people. We want to encourage you to give yourself permission to have honest and raw conversations in the search for your own authenticity. Thank you for joining us. The things that came up in our last conversation was vulnerability. And we said, okay, let's explore, let's have a conversation about vulnerability. And when we started talking about it, I was like, okay, well, how do you even define vulnerability? I didn't want to define it just off the top of my head, so I literally pulled it up. And the definition of a vulnerable is of a person in need of special care, support, or protection because of age, disability, risk of abuse. Um, but then I was like, okay, I don't think that's what we mean. So I'm going to go ahead and look at vulnerability. Um, and it says the quality or state of being exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally, right? So it makes sense that that word is hard for a lot of people, myself included, because when I read the definition, it gives the sense of you're risking being harmed if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, right? So it makes sense that it would be hard, for people to be vulnerable. I'm wondering what thoughts you have about that.
I was listening both,
Mm,
and I think that the framework when they are coming is that this is something wrong, and I'm not sure that that's the way that I define or that I will define vulnerability. Not sure, like neither how I will define it.
mm,
For me, yes, it's kind of an exposure,
mm,
but when they put the focus on that you are going to get harmed,
mm.
it's just scary to be there.
Yes,
So
yes,
I wonder if a definition that is putting more emphasis on being yourself and let others be with you in yourself,
yeah,
maybe it will be more inviting more or welcoming to be
yeah,
vulnerable, because
yeah.
just the definition,
It's
who
scary.
wants to go there? so
Yes.
so when I'm listening this, is like, for me, vulnerability is kind of a self-expression. it's
Mm,
it's being aware of how I feel, and yes, take the risk to put myself out, but I'm not thinking is that putting myself out is going to hurt me.
mm,
It's just about what I try to do in this life or now, because I don't think that before was a goal for me. But today, it's putting myself out there, accepting who I am, and kind of assuming that the other one, it will accept me
yeah.
in the same way that I accept myself or accept
Mm,
others,
mm,
without thinking how risky is to do it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree with you because when we started talking about vulnerability, I was asking myself, what's the definition? And I couldn't think like what the definition was. So I looked at it, but I like I like your definition, right? Because vulnerability has it's it's for me it's your inner self that you release or you show to people who you trust, right? I'm vulnerable with the people that I trust. We talked about love circles in the past, right? My core people, my friends and family who are in my love/trust circle,
know me at my best. They know me at my worst. And I'm not afraid to show that self to them. And that is what I think about when I think about vulnerability. Right. I feel like, it's a trust, if you will, right, that you're giving someone to show your true self to them. Right. And to a certain degree, I understand how the definition reads it to be that. But to me, it's like I'm trusting you with myself, right? I'm trusting you with myself because I want to believe that both of us care enough or respect each other to honor that trust. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, at what point we are just vulnerable with our core love circle, because at the end we are having this conversation,
Yeah.
and we are letting other people to listen our thoughts. And
Yes.
in some ways we are exposing who we are in ways that we cannot control, how people are going to use this information.
Right.
So at what point, if you let yourself being you and being creative and not overthink about what other people are going to do with who you are,
Yeah.
maybe in some ways we are vulnerable
Yeah.
every time, every second. Just
Yeah.
go out
Yeah.
means that in some way we are showing who we are.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I think that I'm getting
Yeah.
over the place, but it's like being vulnerable means that I'm 100% vulnerable, means that they are levels that depends of something, because I feel with myself that every time that I interact with someone, in some ways I've been vulnerable,
Yeah.
because I share who I am. I'm not hiding myself.
I agree with you. I feel like when I go out, right, and you're right, when you go out and you interact with people, you can't control how people receive you, right? You can be as authentic as you want to be. You can be as real as you want to be. You can be as vulnerable or not as you want to be, but people would still, you know, receive you the way they receive you, not the way you want them to receive you, because, you know, that's just human nature, right? We all interpret, what we think or how we feel about our social interactions. And I'm just kind of curious, like this word vulnerability. Why, why is it hard or why is it easy to be vulnerable with people? I don't know why that thought came to me as I was thinking out loud. Why is it hard or why is it easy?
For sure, if you learn about the definition at some
Hmm.
point of your life, I think that is going to be difficult. Nobody wants
Yes,
to put themselves in the risk of being hurt
yes,
physical or
yes,
emotionally
yes,
by
yeah,
someone. So there's no
mm,
way that you don't get afraid of the word.
yeah,
But something that I don't know, maybe new generations, I feel that they are less afraid
mm,
of showing up because they live in a more globalized world, that they connect with people from different cultures,
yeah,
and they are interacting. They are not,
mm,
I don't think that they are overthinking,
yeah,
like they are coming from different worlds. They are just being there connecting with others.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't know right now if I'm talking about vulnerability or just being present.
mm,
And then when you were talking about authenticity, I
yeah,
don't know if you can be authentic
yeah,
and at the same time not being vulnerable or
yeah,
not being present. Like
yeah,
I don't know what are the fine lines.
yeah,
Because if I'm present here,
mm,
accepting how I feel right now.
Yeah.
It's impossible to not be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if I try to be authentic and who I am, also it's impossible not show some kind of vulnerability presence. So I don't know how those three words, I don't know if those three words can live separate or they are just part of the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's a word that I'm always very curious. I'm very curious about, right, how, why, where, do people choose to be vulnerable or not? I've always been curious about that. I mean, obviously, one can only speak for oneself, but I'm always curious how people navigate and negotiate, the vulnerability levels depending on who they're interacting with. It's just something that I'm always like, thinking about.
At least in the way that it came to me, I think that it was kind of a conscious decision of who I wanted to be, how I want to introduce myself, and how I want to interact with others. So it came from a unlearning.
Yes.
Some habits, some protections, some walls to say, no, I really want to truly connect with the other one.
Yeah.
Because I also want that connection that the other one have to offer to me. So I found that the best way to get that connection, it was first to open your door.
Yeah.
Because when you allow yourself to be vulnerable in front of other, kind of you invite the other one to say, oh, if she can do it,
yes,
and she believes that I can be a safe space, maybe I can do the same because she's already doing it. So I think that take courage, at least of one person, to say, I'm going to try that. And that doesn't mean that the other person is going to accept that vulnerability and is going to reciprocate it. But again, it's about what I decide to do with that. So for me, like I kind of explained before, it's not about hiding myself again. It's like accepting that you have also your right to be you, and I will accommodate what parts of me I show you and what parts I don't show you. But it's not because I'm hiding them. It's because you don't accept those in a vulnerable way where I can be myself. So for me, it came from, I don't want to continue fighting or hiding my truly essence of more sweet or lovely that what I thought that I was. But there was kind of a small voice that was always making noise saying, why you didn't say what you wanted? Why you didn't say something sweet? Like, why do you have to be so harsh? So it was a work, really hard work to say, I'm going to stop having that small voice over there. I'm going to integrate that voice. What is the worst thing that it could happen? I can always go back and hide myself. But after enjoying the luxury of having real connections, I don't think that I can come back.
Yeah. And when you were saying that small voice, I smiled because I call that small voice the inner critic, right? I mean, every time I hear those kind of conversations, whether in conversations or interactions, or even for myself, I'm like, what is the inner critic saying, right? A lot of times the inner critic, sometimes talks us out of things, right? Because, like you're saying, maybe you want to, be vulnerable, and the inner critic is like, and then you're like, maybe you're right. And then you back up. So I'm kind of curious how the inner critic may have a role to play with or how we give ourselves permission to be vulnerable in our interaction, right? Depending on what it says or doesn't say, I'm kind of curious.
I'm not sure, because the way that you describe the inner critics, for me, it sounds again like something negative, and doesn't have to be negative. Like critic, it could be something that save you or protect you. But I don't know.
Yes.
I think that I would prefer to call it like kind of my self-reflection voice, or that voice that knows, the intuition that knows that I can do more, that I can allow
Yes.
myself more. So
Yeah.
instead of having that critic voice that I have sometimes, that inner voice that is saying like, you are not doing it good, for me, this voice is more soft, sweet. It's coming
More
from
logical.
intuition. It's coming from emotion to say, what if you try
Yeah.
to connect with the other deeper?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that maybe it's an inner critic in some ways, but I think that I choose, at least right now, to protect that voice and trying to see it in a good light, to get the strength when I don't feel that
Yeah.
my mind,
Yeah.
that is used to protect myself, wants to go that way. So I want to have this voice, like a protection that says, hey, you don't have to settle here.
Yes.
You can continue being you. And if doesn't accept it, find a different way, but don't go back to what I was. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about you? In the sense,
okay.
in the sense of, I don't know if that the concepts of vulnerability have been evolving through your life, and in what point maybe you are right now. That doesn't mean that have to be in the same space than me, because that's the thing. Vulnerability, it's completely depending of ourselves, what we call that. So I'm curious about kind of your journey, and what is the part that you are right now.
So for me, vulnerability has been, I mean, as I'm almost sure in most people, it's an evolution, right? Before you even know what the word vulnerable is, you are vulnerable. And then when you start like interacting with people, then you start checking in with yourself. Oh, how do I want to build this friendship, this relationship? And I find that as I grow older, that I'm very comfortable in my skin, and I've given myself permission to be me. And I'm realizing that in giving myself permission to be me, um, it also gives people permission to be themselves with me, but also it helps people who maybe are in different spaces self-select from the interaction, or also maybe also helps me self-select from the interaction, right? So I think I look at vulnerability in as much as it's scary. I look at it as a strength, because it helps me connect deeply with people who for me, it's a mutually beneficial interaction or relationship. And when I say mutually beneficial, it's not I'm going in to get something out of it. It's both parties are willing to cultivate this thing together, right? Both parties are willing to say, hey, I see you. I hear you. I feel what you're saying. I may not understand it 100%, but I'm here for it because I love you and I trust you, and let's do this, right? And that has been my journey or my evolution with vulnerability. I'm in a space where the people that I surround myself with, who I'm fortunate to call my support system, my love circles, my friendship circles, they're also entrusting me with their vulnerabilities. They're also entrusting in me with things that I'm sure they don't entrust to other people with. So I hold it very dear to me because I know it's a trust that I would like to believe that I've earned and I will continue to earn. Um, so yeah, it's just it's something that I almost see it like a superpower. I don't know why I see it like a superpower because I get to be vulnerable. I get to be vulnerable with certain people because I trust them enough to just be my true self with them. And I invite them and encourage them and welcome them to be their true selves with me. So it's been a journey and I enjoy it. I enjoy every bit of it because I didn't get here overnight. It's been a journey and I'm really, really happy that I'm growing in that journey. I continue to grow. I continue to learn from it because that's another thing. It's a teacher. I find that my vulnerability at every stage in my life has taught me an invaluable lesson. And I don't know what those lessons are, but I know that every time I've looked at when I've been vulnerable and with whom I've been vulnerable with, I've learned something and I've grown from that something that I've learned, you know? So that's just that's my thoughts about, the evolution. And I love the word you use, evolution, right? How I've evolved through it, you know?
Yeah, I was
And
thinking about
yeah,
when you say that as a kid, I
yeah.
think that everybody, you are just vulnerable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And interaction with people show you
Yeah,
that you are in risk or that you are safe. So you
yeah,
go that way. And I wonder what will happen if we really let the kids to show that and become
mm,
adults showing
yeah,
vulnerability without being so afraid
mm,
of putting out their emotions. And I'm
yeah,
thinking that like boys that they learn that they cannot cry, that they cannot show emotions,
oh
and
yeah,
how both of us as a therapist, we are always seeing men's fathers that they cannot allow themselves to be
yeah,
sweet or soft or
mm,
showing emotions
mm,
that they really have. And also happen with women. This is not about a gender thing,
mm,
but I feel that culture is more uh, strict or hard with men's and with boys.
mm,
And I remember one time I was struggling, I was fighting with my husband, and because he started like talking with a girl, uh, that I start feeling that was kind of inappropriate, and we were kind of fighting. And I remember that he told me, "With who do you want me to talk about my feelings about you? I
mm,
cannot talk with you. I
mm,
cannot talk with my friends that are going to say that while you are crying for her, just find a younger one, just
mm,
move on. You
mm,
don't
mm,
waste your time
yeah,
talking or crying or being sad because
yeah,
of your wife. Just
yeah,
find a different way."
yeah,
And when he kind of yelled at me in desperation, like, who else do I have? Because when you are in a couple,
yeah,
uh, it's difficult. You cannot share some stuff with
yeah,
your
yeah,
family members because you don't want your family members upset with your wife or with your husband because they are
yeah,
not going to forgive in the same way that you are forgiving.
yeah,
But also, usually women's, we have more support, so
yeah,
we can talk and cry with a girlfriend, and that
mm, mm,
girlfriend is going to be sad with us
mm,
for a
mm,
couple of
mm,
hours, and next day everybody's happy in their
yeah,
life.
yeah,
But when he kind of yelled at me in desperation, say, "With who do you want me to talk?" that was a moment that kind of changed my life, because I realized how difficult it's
Yeah.
for some people
Yeah.
to be able to show that, to express what they need or who they
Yeah.
are and how they feel, because there are spaces that they are not safe for those people. So I think that also, because having boys that I have to raise, is how I make sure
Yeah.
that they receive both messages at the same time.
Yeah.
It is okay to show your emotions.
Yeah.
Also, you need to learn how to show them,
Yeah.
and how to ask for help,
Yeah.
because it's not like, okay, I need all this and I'm going to dump on you
Mm-hmm.
everything that I need so you can
Yeah.
save me. It's not
Yeah.
about that. But how do you learn? How do you teach
Mm-hmm.
that balance, that I don't
Yeah.
think that some of us, we were taught about how to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I really, really, what you shared really resonated with me because one of my favorite demographic to work with is men. And the reason is what you said, right? I know society has done men a disservice in telling them men or boys don't cry. And I just always call the BS on that, right? Because if they're not supposed to cry, then why do they have tears? Right? What is the function of tears in boys and men if they're not supposed to cry? I always call BS on that. And I always challenge them, why do you have tears? What is the function of tears? Right? And I always, in the challenging of that, the goal is to let them know that if you are a human being and you have tears, you know, you're supposed to cry. So also as a boy mom, I'm a girl mom and I'm a boy mom. I work, I think, twice as hard, and I don't have to, but I work twice as hard to be aware of the contradictory messaging that society is giving them and I'm giving them. Because I'm encouraging them, hey, it's okay to cry. And I don't know what society is telling them out there. Well, you're a boy. Don't I'm like, no, don't listen to them. I'm your mother. You cry if you want to. So it's just this double messaging that to me is just frustrating, you
And I
know?
think, yeah, and when I hear you like, I'm your mom, listen to
Mhm.
me and not to society,
Yeah.
I there was like a red flag that came, uh,
Yes.
because those, we are the moms that we
Yes.
raise our kids.
Hmm.
So we are the ones telling them, hey, yes, I
Yes.
can see that he's crying, but I'm the one that's showing you the real values. So at what
Yes.
point is we cannot escape from this,
Yeah.
but we stop letting others being themselves or being
Hmm.
vulnerable.
Hmm.
So what is
Hmm.
the balance between, this is my life and the way
Yeah.
that I decide to live, but also when you are raising kids, how to allow them
Yeah.
to become themselves
Yeah.
without having to follow all mommy
Yes.
values or
Yes.
messages, because at the end, all this that we are talking about society are usually the moms also
Yep.
who teach this. And I
Yep.
have, when you were talking about some men, I have some wives saying, but I don't get why he's so emotional,
Mm.
because
Yep.
he's a man. So
Yep.
it's
Yep.
difficult. So
Oh.
I think that kind of, because we need to
Oof.
kind of start closing this.
Yeah.
I think that the idea that it's rounding, it's
Yeah.
how do we let others
Yeah.
being vulnerable in their own way, that
Yes.
doesn't have to be our way.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. It's really, really hard and tricky. It's so hard and tricky because in as much as we are mothers and we raise our children, society also raises them with us, right?
And we
So
can
we
also
just,
not escape from some things of the society because
yes,
we live
yes,
in interaction. So
yeah,
we also want that our kids behave
mm,
well, so we don't
mm.
receive 20 calls from school, or they make
Yeah,
us feel that we are not doing a good job as a mom.
mm,
So
yeah,
it's not an easy, it's a
yeah.
challenging.
It's very challenging, yes. So what is our takeaway from this conversation and vulnerability, you think?
For me, is that we have to describe vulnerability as a self-expression
Mm,
instead of being afraid
yeah,
of exposing yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, I just feel like in as much as vulnerability is scary, if it could be looked at as a strength, I think it may balance the fear factor that it comes with, and I hope that people give themselves permission to be vulnerable with their love and their trust circle.
Thank you for joining us.